Yes, you're welcome. It's your boy Jacob. Now, today we are going to talk about interview questions for those who are going for their US Embassy interviews. What questions do you expect to be asked when you are going for your immigrant embassy interview? Basically, employment based. I'm going to concentrate on the employment based visa category because that's where I have more experience in. So the questions depend whether you are married or single. The questions are quite different for those who are married and those who are single. But there are some common questions which can be asked to both categories. So today we are going to talk about which common questions you expect to be asked when you go for your employment visa interview at the US Embassy. Now, one of the most common questions they ask when you go for your visa interview, the visa officer will ask you one of these questions, and one of the most questions is, where are you going to work? Basically, which state are you going to? So you have to tell him or her the state you are going to, whether you are going to Texas, whether you are going to Maryland or Virginia. You need to mention the state, and it has to be the exact state which is in your employment paper, your employment letter which they sent you. Don't talk anything different from what is on your paper. So that's one of the most common questions. Another common question for your visa interview is, who is your employer? Yes, who is your employer? That's a very, very common question, and you have to be prepared. So the challenge with most people is it depends whether you are going as a direct hire for a facility or you are going with an agency. So if you are with a direct hire with a facility, you mention the facility which is employing you or a hospital. But if you are with an agency, a recruiting agency, you need to tell them the name of the recruiting agency which is taking you as your employer. So for example, if it's Avant which is bringing you here, you tell them Avant is my employer. If it's MediPro, you tell them MediPro is my employer. If it's Interstaff, you tell them Interstaff is my employer. Don't tell them the facility where you are placed. That is a placement facility, not your employer. So your employer is the agency, unless you came with a direct hire. So that is a little bit different. So if the agency is the one which is bringing you here in the States, the agency, the recruiting agency, is your employer. Now, another very common question they ask is, what is the salary scale? How much are you going to earn? So basically, you should tell them the amount which is on your employment letter. So if it's 27 per hour, that's what you have to tell them. If it's 32 per hour or 35 per hour, that's the amount you have to tell them. Don't tell them anything different from what is written on your employment letter. If you tell them anything different from what is written on your employment letter, believe me, they will not give you that visa. They will say this is different. You are not the person. So everything you need to tell the visa officer has to be on the employment letter, or has to be something which was written on your DS-260 form when you are filling in for the application. Now, let's talk about the marriage. Now, when you go as a married couple, what questions do you expect them to ask you? One of the common questions they'll ask is, where did you meet? You need to tell them whether you met in school or at the party. Also, you need to they will ask you, when was your wedding date? You need to know it, and you have to answer the wedding date, the date when you got married. Another very common question is, how long have you been married? So it can be either 5 years or 6 years. You need to tell them. So you need to give them the exact information which you submitted in your DS-260 form, and also the one on your marriage papers. Anything different from what is documented in the DS-260 or on your marriage papers, they'll put your case in administrative process and they will investigate. And my friends who are coming from Uganda and you want to come here in the US as a married couple, believe me, if your marriage happened in a mosque or somewhere in church and is not registered with the government, they will deny it. Your marriage needs to appear in the government register book. Okay, you need to go to URSB and register your marriage. If your marriage happened in church or in a mosque or a traditional marriage and it's not registered with the government, they will not give you that visa. It happens in all other countries. The only recognized marriage is the marriage which is in the government books. So basically that is quite very important. And also your children. The children, they may ask your children, is this your father? Is this your mother? They ask them, what's your name? They have to know all those things. They have to be, they don't always ask kids questions, but they may be prompted to ask them. They want to know that those are your children. Yeah. So basically those are some of the common questions they ask when you go for your employment best visa interview. The questions can be different from one person to another, but basically they all round about employment, where you are going to work, the salary scale, which state you are going to, your employment contract. It's very important to go with your employment contract. Very, very, very important. Without it, they will not give you that visa. So the interview basically is quite short. Some people spend like a minute, others 2 minutes. They can ask you 1-2 questions and they say if your visa is issued, or your visa is in administrative process, or it's denied. But basically most employment based visas, 70% they issue their visas. Yeah, the interviews are quite very short, around 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're out of the place. So when you are issued, they will tell you, oh, your visa has been approved, wait for your package. If your case is going to administrative process, they'll give you a yellow paper. They say, your case has been put in administrative process. They'll investigate for such and such a time. Just go home, fill some questions, some things like that. So they tell you there and end what. So they tell you there and then the stand of your visa status. So I wish you the best for all those going for their employment best visa interviews. I wish you the best. May you get your visas granted. Next week, if I get some time, I'm going to talk about the administrative process, what happens when your case goes into the administrative process, what you have to do. I went through the administrative process. My visa was not issued directly. No, I had to go twice to Nairobi for the visa interview. I went there, they didn't issue me first. My case was put in administrative process. I had to wait for some time. So next week, or if I get some time, I'm quite busy. If I get some time, I'm going to talk about the administrative process, what happens when your case is put in administrative process.